How we care for our lawns directly impacts the quality of our water, both the water we drink and the water in our rivers, lakes, and streams. Fertilizers can harm the environment if not applied properly. If they are not absorbed into the ground and used by the grass plants, the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium that are in fertilizers may wash off your lawn and into the storm drain, ending up in our rivers, lakes, and streams. And some may also end up in our groundwater.
A neglected lawn with thin grass or a perfect lawn both can harm our lakes and rivers. When it rains, pollutants can wash off and end up in our groundwater or our surface water. The best choice for clean water is a properly maintained lawn. With a little knowledge and some good practices, you can have a nice quality lawn and clean water.
In this video, you will learn how to reduce the need for fertilizer by strengthening your lawn through basic lawn care practices. You will learn how to find out what nutrients your lawn needs. You will learn how to use fertilizer in a way that maximizes its benefit to your lawn and reduces its impact on our waterways. First, let's talk about reducing your lawn's need for fertilizer by strengthening your lawn through healthy lawn care practices. In the first video in this series, you learned some simple steps you can take to achieve a healthy lawn that is also good for the environment. Let's first review these steps. Practice proper mowing habits such as mowing at about 3 inches height, trying not to cut more than 1/3 of the grass blade off each time, using a sharp mower blade, and leaving the grass clippings on the lawn. Grass clippings are a natural fertilizer. If you leave the clippings on your lawn, they will break down and become part of the soil, providing the same amount of nutrients as a round of fertilizer. Aerate in the fall to give roots room to grow and improve water infiltration. Allow grass to go dormant in summer. If you choose to water, water deep and infrequently in the spring and fall, and shallow and more frequently in the summer. If you rarely water your lawn, that will also decrease your need for fertilizer, since the lawn is not as actively growing and you are not washing nutrients away from the roots. For more information about basic lawn care, watch Lawn Care Basics at mwmo.org. These steps will give you a good quality lawn that will meet average expectations and that is also good for the environment. If you have high expectations for your lawn, dark green with very few or no weeds, you may need to fertilize more often. The next step is to find out what your lawn needs. Lawns need a balance of nutrients to thrive. The purpose of fertilizer is to give your soil the nutrients it lacks. The best way to learn what your lawn needs is by getting your soil tested. The University of Minnesota has a soil testing lab, and for a small fee, you can send in a sample of your soil and get fertilizer recommendations specifically for your yard. Get the forms and instructions on the University of Minnesota website and follow them to collect and submit a sample.
Most important thing is that you're taking soil from the root zone where your grass will be growing and removing that top layer of tissue and thatch and mixing that all together, sealing it in a bag. We do have soil sample bags. You can also put it in a Ziploc bag and send it to the University of Minnesota Soil Testing Laboratory.
You will receive your results in about 2 weeks. Once you know what is in your soil and what nutrients it needs, you are well on your way to using fertilizer in the most effective and environmentally responsible way. Now let's talk about using fertilizer in a way that maximizes its effect on your lawn and reduces its impact on the environment. The first principle is, know what nutrients make up fertilizer and what they do. There are 3 main components which are listed on all fertilizer bags in this order: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. The numbers on the fertilizer bag refer to the percentage of each nutrient in that bag. The first number on the front of the fertilizer bag is nitrogen. Most often, this is what your lawn needs. Nitrogen makes your lawn turn a rich, deep green. Nitrogen also increases the growth of plants and algae in our waterways, which turns them green and scummy. Look for a fertilizer that has a high percentage of slow-release nitrogen.
And slow release simply means that it releases that nitrogen over a period of time. It's less prone to loss of nitrogen to the environment.
Slow release nitrogen is more expensive than fast release varieties and can be harder to find, but it stays in the soil and continues to feed your lawn for a longer period of time. Slow release nitrogen won't wash away with the first rainstorm, which makes it safer for our lakes and rivers. Phosphorus is the middle number on the front of the fertilizer bag. It promotes root growth. Phosphorus causes algae to grow in our lakes, making them green and scummy. It is similar to nitrogen in this way, but there is plenty of nitrogen in our lakes and rivers already, so plants are more sensitive to inputs of phosphorus. Both nitrogen and phosphorus contribute to the creation of the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. The best way to reduce contamination by both nitrogen and phosphorus is to apply fertilizer properly, which will reduce the amount of these nutrients that reach our waterways. Minnesota soils generally have adequate phosphorus. In fact, it is illegal to use phosphorus fertilizer in Minnesota on lawns.
Homeowners cannot apply phosphorus unless they are establishing a new lawn from sod or seed, or unless they have a soil test report that indicates that their soil is low in phosphorus.
If your soil test recommends zero phosphorus fertilizer, or if you didn't get your soil tested, by law, the middle number on your fertilizer bag must be 0. The third number on the bag is potassium. Potassium helps plants withstand stresses such as drought and disease. Potassium from lawn fertilizers is not likely to reach surface waters at levels of concern for aquatic life. The second principle is, know how to calculate how much fertilizer you need. Over-fertilizing does not benefit your grass. Excess fertilizer can seep into the groundwater or wash off your lawn and into our waterways, contaminating our lakes and rivers and the wildlife that depend on them. The first step in figuring out how much fertilizer you need is to find out the size of your yard. A small Minneapolis lawn averages about 2,500 to 3,000 square feet. Measure your yard using a tape measure or by walking along the borders and counting your footsteps. One step is usually about 3 feet. To get the square footage of a rectangular lot, simply multiply the length times the width. You can also look up your house on your county website. Many counties have maps with measuring tools you can use. With each of these methods, be sure to subtract your house, driveway, and any other areas that are not lawn. Write the square footage of your yard where you will be able to find it next time. You'll use the square footage to help you determine how much fertilizer to buy and apply. The second step to figuring out how much fertilizer you need is to read your soil test. On your soil test results, you will find recommendations for nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. If the test says your soil does not need phosphorus, make sure you buy zero phosphorus fertilizer. The middle number on the front of the bag must be 0. At the bottom of the recommendations section of your soil test results, you will find an approximate ratio of the 3 nutrients needed for your lawn. The third step is to read the information on the fertilizer bags so you buy the right kind of fertilizer. First, look at the 3 numbers on the front of the bag and match those numbers as closely as possible to the approximate ratio recommended on your soil test. This will make sure you get the right amount of each ingredient. If you haven't had your soil tested, look for a fertilizer with a ratio close to 2:0:1, which is the same as 20:0:10, 24:0:12, or 28:0:14.
If you do not have a soil test, generally we would recommend about half the potassium to nitrogen, a 2:1 nitrogen to potassium ratio.
What this means is that you want twice as much nitrogen as potassium and 0 phosphorus. This ratio will get you close to your lawn's needs.
This bag has a ratio of 20:09. That's close to 20:10. So if you don't know what your lawn needs, this would be a good choice.
Next, read the ingredients on the back of the bag to find out how much of the nitrogen is slow release. This section is usually called Guaranteed Analysis and looks something like the nutritional information on the back of a box of cereal. You want as much slow-release nitrogen as possible to stimulate grass growth over a longer period of time without burning the grass, which causes it to turn brown and dry out. Look for words like water-insoluble, timed release, stabilized, or coated.
Another clue to look for is an asterisk. This bag has one. When I follow it down, it says that there's 5% slowly available nitrogen. That's a little less than we'd like to see. Ideally, you want one that's got about half of the nitrogen number.
Check your local garden center or ask if they can order a higher percentage slow-release fertilizer. The fourth step is to calculate how much fertilizer you need to use. Look at the recommendations on your soil test. It is shown in pounds of nitrogen per year per 1,000 square feet. The fertilizer bag will tell you how much to use per 1,000 square feet under a heading such as Directions for Use or Coverage. Using this amount should give you about 1 pound of nitrogen. If your soil test recommends more or less than 1 pound of nitrogen, adjust the amount of fertilizer accordingly. If you measured your lawn as 3,000 square feet, you would need a total of 3 times the amount recommended on the bag. In this case, 3 times 3.2 equals 9.6 pounds. For more detailed information on how to determine the type and amount of fertilizer to use, visit mwmo.org. Without a soil test, follow these general recommendations. If you leave clippings on the lawn and don't water regularly, use the amount recommended on the bag. If you water regularly or remove clippings, you may need to apply more, usually about 1.5 times the recommended amount. Watch for signs that your lawn needs fertilizer, such as the lawn thinning out. Whether it's from the soil test or these general recommendations, this amount will be the total for the whole year, not for multiple applications. The third principle of responsible fertilizing is fertilize according to the life cycle of grass. The best time to apply fertilizer to your lawn is in the early fall, around Labor Day. The grass plant is developing strong roots and crowns in preparation for the winter. Fertilizer will encourage this growth. Most lawns only need to be fertilized once per year in the fall. If your soil test indicates you need more than 1 pound of nitrogen, you'll want to split the application so that you apply about 1/3 of the total in the spring, around Mother's Day, and 2/3 in the fall. Never fertilize frozen ground. Your grass is dormant and the fertilizer will not soak into the soil. Instead, it will run off your lawn and may contaminate our lakes and rivers. Also, don't fertilize during the hot summer months when the lawn is dormant or the ground is saturated with water. The fourth principle of responsible fertilizing is apply fertilizer efficiently. Choose the right spreader for your space. A rotary or broadcast spreader efficiently applies fertilizer in large areas by spraying out in all directions from the spreader. Use a shield with this spreader to keep fertilizer from spraying onto a driveway, sidewalk, or road. For smaller areas, a drop spreader drops fertilizer straight down from the spreader and is less likely to spray onto the street or sidewalk. For super tight spaces, use a shaker. Calculate how much you need, fill the shaker, and gently apply. To make sure you don't over-apply fertilizer, use the lowest setting on your spreader, which allows the fertilizer to go through the spreader. For more accuracy, it is a good practice to calibrate your spreader to determine how much is applied at each setting. Find instructions at mwmo.org. Apply in an overlapping pattern, so you get even coverage and don't miss any spots. When overlapping, make sure that the outer edge of the fertilizer reaches your wheel track mark on the lawn. Since you are overlapping, you are applying fertilizer twice. To adjust for this, change your spreader setting so that you apply about 1/2 the amount for each pass over your lawn. If you haven't calibrated, to make sure you don't over-apply fertilizer, use the lowest setting on your spreader, which allows the fertilizer to go through the spreader. The fertilizer bag will state how much area it will cover. Use this to check your accuracy. If your lawn is 3,000 square feet and the bag states it will cover 5,000 square feet, you will only need a little over 1/2 a bag. The fifth principle of responsible fertilizing is keep fertilizer out of our waterways. Make sure you have a broom handy and sweep up any fertilizer that accidentally lands on a hard surface, such as your driveway. This will limit the amount of fertilizer runoff that contaminates the river. Any spilled fertilizer should be swept back on the lawn if it's a small amount, or returned to the bag. After you finish fertilizing, seal your bag with the remaining fertilizer and put in your garage or basement to use next year. Using fertilizer can be overwhelming. If you prefer not to do this yourself, you can hire a certified contractor to do these jobs for you. Visit the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency's website to find a list of certified contractors. These are companies that have staff trained in lawn care with reduced environmental impacts. Contractors that apply fertilizers are required by law to be licensed by the Department of Agriculture. Make sure they have this license. Let's review the main points. Reduce your lawn's need for fertilizer by strengthening your lawn through healthy lawn care practices. Remember 2 practices that directly reduce your need for fertilizer. Minimize your watering, including letting your grass go dormant in the summer, and leave grass clippings on the lawn. Get your soil tested to find out what nutrients your lawn needs. Know the principles of responsible fertilizing. Understand what nutrients make up fertilizer and what they do. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium all can contaminate our waterways and groundwater if improperly used. Use 0 phosphorus unless your soil test shows that you need it. Use slow-release nitrogen fertilizer that will stay on your lawn longer and not wash into our lakes and rivers or groundwater. Use information from your soil test to calculate how much fertilizer you need. Or, if you don't have a soil test, buy a fertilizer with a ratio of 2:1. Apply the amount recommended on the bag, or 1.5 times the recommended amount if you remove clippings and water regularly. Fertilize according to the life cycle of grass. Remember to fertilize in the fall around Labor Day. Use fertilizer efficiently and responsibly. Use the right type of spreader and apply in overlapping passes. Keep fertilizer out of our waterways. Sweep up any spilled fertilizer and save extra fertilizer for next year. Hire a certified contractor if you prefer not to fertilize your lawn yourself.
Remember, everything you apply ends up somewhere, often in our waters. If you know what your lawn needs, you can make better choices. The decisions we make on how to care for our lawns can have a big impact on water quality. Take time to learn how to properly use fertilizers so that you can have a healthy lawn and clean water.
If you'd like to watch this video again or view the other videos in this series, Lawn Care Basics and Weed Control, visit mwmo.org. To learn more about soil testing, visit soiltest.cfans.umn.edu. To find a list of contractors certified in lawn care with reduced environmental impacts, visit www.pca.state.mn.us/turfgrass.